Today I'm going to share with you the smartest way on how to buy a car. I mean, there are so many people who are making the mistakes on buying especially their first car. So after watching this video, you are going to be able to buy the right car for yourself and the right car that can be able to accommodate your lifestyle. Remember, we have seen a lot of people making mistakes whereby they find out that the car is consuming a lot of petrol, or maybe they can't afford the car. So on today's video, I'm going to make sure that you avoid all the mistakes and be able to maintain your car at the end. The tips that I'm going to share with you on how to buy a car, the smartest ways, can be able to work when you are buying a house. But then we are mainly going to focus on car because people are making a lot of mistakes. Once they start making money, they think about buying a car. So we are just going to focus on cars, but then you can be able to take these tips and do them when you are buying a house. By the way, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing the tips and tricks that I use, or some people are really sharing with me, and then I come back to share with you. If you need a financial advisor, please make sure that someone that is going to advise you when it comes to financial issues is someone who is registered with FSCA. By the way, let's continue with this video. Number one mistake that people are making when buying a car is making a decision when they are standing in front of a salesman. That's the number one mistake that you need to avoid. Don't make a decision on which car do you want when you're standing in front of a salesman, because a salesman is there to make sure that whenever you live with a car, and the more the expensive the car you are buying, the more he is going to gain some portion amount of money, because they are getting paid because of their clients. So please don't make your conclusion when you are standing in front of a salesman, because he's going to make sure that whenever you leave the dealership, you have your own car. So what you need to do is to plan months ago. You need to prepare maybe 6 months upward. Don't plan 3 months, 2 months. They are going to be able to convince you. So if you are able to plan 6 months ahead, after 6 months you go there, already you made your own conclusions. If ever a salesman says this car, whatever the case may be, you just know that I'm planning to buy this car, and you go straight forward for that car. But then playing months ago, it comes with calculations. You need to be able to calculate how much are you willing to pay per month. And remember, if you are willing to pay 4,000 and you can be able to pay it 4,000 for 6 months, that doesn't mean you are able to afford the car. No, you are not. You need to be able to have more than that. Maybe you are going to pay 4,000, you need to have 6,000, 7,000 upfront. Remember, we have things like wheels. Wheels needs to be changed, and they are very expensive. So just because maybe you have 4,000 to pay the car monthly, that doesn't mean you afford it. Remember, you need to keep consideration when it comes to petrol, when it comes to wheels, when it comes to wheel caps, like things that you are going to change it, even if maybe you are not going to change them monthly, but maybe after 6 months, a year, you need to consider all those things. So the best mistake that people, not the best what I say, but then the worst mistake that people do, they think if they have 5,000 and then the dealership says you can be able to buy this car when you are going to pay 5,000 per month, they think that they can be able to afford that car, which is what you can't afford that car. You need to consider other factors that are outside just buying a car, things like petrol, like I said, things like wheels, like other things that are going to be additional. Remember also the insurance. You need to insure your car if anything happens, because anything can happen at any time. So you need to insure your car. If any disaster that can come across your car, you can be able to cover it by your insurance that you have been paying. So the biggest mistake is that people are taking the car without insurance, and then they end up maybe coming across accident. God forbid that doesn't happen to you, but then coming across an accident and then they don't have a car insurance, that's when they no longer have a car anymore. So you need to be able to consider all those things. So what I always say is that if you are buying a car that you're going to pay maybe 5,000 per month, you need to be able to save 10,000 per month, so that you can be able to be in a safe side. If anything happens, you can be able to go and fix the car, to go and change whatever that need to be changed. I spoke about planning 6 months ahead. So in that 6 months, you need to be able to save whatever the money that you are willing to pay at the dealership. Let's say maybe you are willing to buy a car that costs 5,000 or 4,000. in that 6 months, you need to save that 4,000 per month up until that 6 months before you go and buy the car. So in that way, it's going to help you in a way of maybe you can track yourself if ever you are going to be able to afford the car or you are not going to be able to afford the car. So if you go to the dealership and then buy a car without going through that process, you might find yourself not be able to afford the car. But if you have done that thing for 6 months, you can be able to recognize the mistakes, or you can be able to be aware that I'm not going to be able to afford this car that I want. So plan 6 months ahead and then save that money that you are willing to pay. Maybe you are willing to pay 7,000 per month. Save it for 6 months so that you can be able to check yourself whether you are going to be able to afford the car or not. So this trick, it prepares you mentally and psychologically so that you can be able to be aware of the mistakes that can. So there are so many people who go and buy a car while standing in front of a dealership, and the dealership is going to convince you no matter what, so that if you leave the dealership, you have your own car so that he can gain his profit. So many people are making that mistakes. Go to the dealership, make the conclusion while they are there without preparing themselves, and then the after we hear things like the car is repossessed or what. So for you to avoid your car to be repossessed mainly because of you can't afford it, you need to do this trick of saving that money that you are willing to pay for 6 months so that you can be able to be aware whether you are going to be able to afford the car or not. And this thing, it helps you that if maybe you have saved for 6 months, it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, you already have 30,000 that you are going to pay at the dealership as an upfront payment, so that your monthly payment can be maybe less, or maybe you can reduce the years that you are going to pay for that car. So it helps you to have an upfront money that you are going to pay. Remember, some dealership want a certain portion amount. You can't just come and say I will pay 4,000. Maybe they will say we want 20%. So you are going to be able to afford it because you have been saving money for about 6 months. So you have an upfront money that you are going to be able to pay at the dealership. Another tip that I want to give you is that do not go for your dream car. And that's what I always say for myself. My dream car is a Mercedes-Benz, whether it's the C63, A45, G63, it doesn't matter. As long as it's those three cars. And also my dream car is Ford ST. But I always say that I will never go for that car as a first car, mainly because you don't know anything about cars. So you need to be able to be comfortable in a car, knowing that you know it, knowing that if ever maybe you use a gear in a certain way, it's going to damage somewhere. So imagine if it's a first car and you don't know that you are using a gear in each and every way you can, without being aware that you are going to damage something. So you need to learn a car. For your first car, don't go for your dream car. Go for a normal car that you are going to learn how does the car work, how does the car operate, so that you can be familiar with a car. If you have your own dream car, you are going to be able to be aware of certain mistakes that you are not going to be able to do, and then the after you can be able to feel comfortable to say I know a car, I know if I do this is going to damage somewhere, if I do this is going to damage somewhere. So if you go for your dream car, you are going to find yourself always fixing your car, mainly because they are going to tell you, oh, you should have not done this, but because of you don't know anything about a car, you're just going to drive it as the way you want to drive it, use a gear in a certain way that you can't be able. This is just an example. So you need to be able to buy a car that is not your dream car as your first car, so that you can familiarize yourself with a car, how does the car operates. Another tip that I can give you is that whenever you want a car, maybe you want a Ford ST, for example, like me, I want a Ford ST. So what I need to do is to ask people who have owned or who have Ford ST things like a petrol consumption, because you don't want to buy a car only to find out that it consumes a lot of petrol. So you need to ask them certain questions that are going to be able to help you in future when you are buying that car. So go to those people. If you want a Toyota Yaris, go to those people, ask them questions. How do you think, how do you feel about this car? What's the worst things about this car? What's the best things about this car? After that, that's when you can take conclusion on which car do you really want. Now let's do a recap on the tips and tricks that I gave you. Number one, do not make conclusion which car do you want when you are standing in front of the dealership. Number two, Ask people who owns the car that you want questions about it. How do they feel about it? Number 3, make sure that you save money for 6 months to check if you are able to afford the car. Number 4, if it's your first car, make sure that you don't buy your dream car. So those are the 4 tips and tricks that I'm giving you right now. If you can master those things, you will never buy a car and then regret it after. So if you watch this video up until the end, please make sure that you watch these videos that you are seeing on the screen right now. I will see you right there.